In the world of Hollywood, where glamour meets relentless public scrutiny, certain stories rise above the daily swirl of celebrity updates and become cultural talking points. The ongoing feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni is one such story. It is not just another disagreement between two well-known figures. Instead, it has evolved into a high-stakes public conflict filled with legal drama, emotional statements, and now a piece of alleged proof that Blake Lively claims could change everything. For months, whispers of behind-the-scenes tension have grown. Louder reports have circulated that suggested a smear campaign was in motion, targeting Lively in ways that threatened her public image and professional opportunities. At first, these claims were dismissed by some as nothing more than rumor, but as events unfolded, the narrative became harder to ignore, and the tension between the two stars reached a boiling point. Blake Lively, known for her long-standing success in film, television, and the fashion world, is no stranger to the spotlight. Her career has been defined by a carefully built reputation as a talented actress, a style icon, and a charitable figure. But in this feud, her image has been put to the test in a way few could have predicted. She now finds herself at the center of a dispute where public perception can shift in a matter of hours, depending on what evidence surfaces. Justin Baldoni, equally respected in Hollywood for his acting and directing work, has presented a very different version of events. Baldoni has positioned himself as someone unfairly dragged into controversy, maintaining that any accusations of a coordinated smear effort are unfounded. This clash of narratives has turned what might have been a private disagreement into a public spectacle, drawing in fans, journalists, and legal analysts alike. The turning point came when reports emerged that Lively had obtained what she describes as undeniable proof, evidence she believes not only clears her name but also reveals the truth behind the tensions with Baldoni. If the details of this proof are as compelling as she suggests, they could reshape the entire story and potentially alter the course of any ongoing legal or public disputes in the entertainment industry. Timing is everything, and the moment this alleged proof became known, it sent shockwaves through social media, news outlets, and entertainment circles. The stage is now set for a deeper look at how we got here, what is at stake, and why this single piece of evidence could change everything. To understand the weight of Blake Lively's alleged proof, it is important to trace the roots of this feud back to where it all began. The story is not one of sudden hostility. Instead, it appears to have developed over time, with moments of tension slowly stacking until they could no longer be ignored. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni both entered Hollywood through different paths. Lively became a household name in her early 20s, starring in a hit television drama and quickly moving into acclaimed film roles. Her charm and screen presence helped her cross into mainstream recognition while also making her a fixture in fashion and lifestyle media. Baldoni, on the other hand, gained his breakthrough later in life through heartfelt acting performances and later through directing projects that won critical praise. Both were respected in their own lanes, and their paths rarely crossed until recent years, according to accounts from insiders. The first signs of strain emerged during discussions about a potential joint project. The project, which reportedly had the backing of a major studio, was said to be a high-profile drama with the potential to boost both of their careers. Negotiations for such projects are often complex, involving creative visions, budgets, and schedules. It is believed that disagreements over creative direction became the first point of friction. Some sources claim Lively pushed for certain narrative choices, while Baldoni preferred a different approach. Neither side officially confirmed these details, but whispers and industry circles suggested the discussions did not end on friendly terms. From that moment onward, subtle signs of distance became noticeable. Fans who followed both on social media noticed that friendly interactions between them had stopped entirely. Entertainment journalists pointed out that at events where both were present, they seemed to avoid each other entirely. The absence of collaboration or even public acknowledgement hinted that something deeper was brewing. The situation escalated further when media outlets began publishing stories that painted Lively in an unflattering light. Some articles hinted at professional difficulties, others questioned her behavior on set. While no single story caused a major scandal, the steady stream of negative press began to create a shift in perception for Lively, who had carefully maintained her public image. This change was significant and troubling. It was at this stage that the first claims of a coordinated smear campaign emerged. Anonymous sources suggested that these stories were not random but part of a deliberate effort to undermine her reputation. The idea seemed far-fetched to some, but to others it fit the pattern they were observing. Lively herself did not comment at first, choosing instead to remain silent publicly while dealing with the matter privately. For Baldoni, the media chatter placed him in an awkward position. While his name was not directly tied to the negative stories about Lively, some observers speculated that the tensions between them could be connected. His public stance remained calm and measured, denying any involvement and expressing a desire to focus on his work rather than the rumors. By this point, the stage was set for a much larger confrontation. The combination of strained professional history, growing suspicion, and an increasingly involved public created the perfect conditions for a feud to spill out into the open. And when Lively eventually came forward with her alleged proof, the years of tension suddenly had a new focal point. As the months passed, the quiet unease between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni began to shift into something more visible and more contentious. The phrase smear campaign started appearing in entertainment blogs and online discussion boards, and it was clear that this was no longer a subtle undercurrent but an open subject of speculation. A smear campaign in Hollywood is not always as obvious as a sudden flood of sensational headlines. More often, it is a gradual layering of small damaging stories, each one eroding public confidence bit by bit. For Lively, this pattern seemed to be forming. There were stories about supposed disagreements on set and anonymous claims about her being difficult to work with. There were whispers that she had become overly controlling in creative projects and even that she was causing delays in certain productions. Each story on its own could be dismissed as typical gossip, but when placed together, they began to create a damaging picture. Fans of Lively noticed the change almost immediately. Her public appearances, which once drew overwhelmingly positive coverage, began receiving mixed reviews. Social media commentary turned sharper, with hashtags and threads discussing her alleged behavior spreading across platforms. The tone of the coverage was shifting from admiration to doubt, and the transformation was happening at an alarming pace. It was during this period that some of Lively's supporters began suggesting that the negative coverage was too consistent to be coincidental. Online communities started piecing together timelines, noting that several unflattering stories about her had emerged within days of projects or announcements connected to Baldoni. This correlation was enough for some to claim there was a deliberate effort to damage her brand and credibility. From Baldoni's perspective, the accusations were baseless. In interviews and public appearances, he maintained his distance from the gossip, refusing to address Lively directly and reiterating that he had no interest in engaging in drama. Still, the idea that someone of his influence and connections could quietly shape narratives in the entertainment press was a theory that stuck in the minds of many observers. The entertainment industry is no stranger to strategic leaks and controlled narrative. Studios, publicists, and insiders often trade information to shape public perception in their favor. For some people, this is simply part of the business. For others, it crosses an ethical line. The question at the heart of the Lively and Baldoni feud became whether this was just ordinary industry politics or an orchestrated attempt to harm a rival. By the time Lively finally decided to speak publicly, the rumor mill had been running for months. She had watched her reputation take repeated hits and, according to her supporters, had privately gathered information about the sources and patterns of these attacks. What she hinted at was explosive proof that could not only clear her name but also expose a hidden network of influence behind the stories. The alleged smear campaign had moved from whispers to headlines, and now, with Lively's claims of solid evidence, it was poised to become a central focus in Hollywood's ongoing conversation about truth manipulation and the power of public perception. The turning point in the feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni came when Lively revealed that she had what she described as undeniable proof. For months, she had remained largely silent while speculation swirled, choosing not to engage in a public back and forth. But now she was ready to speak, and her words suggested that everything the public thought they knew about this feud might be about to change. The announcement did not come in the form of a dramatic press conference. Instead, it was delivered through a carefully coordinated statement released by her legal team. The statement was concise and confident. It claimed that Lively had gathered evidence that would expose the truth behind the negative stories that had followed her for months. It suggested that the source of these attacks could be traced and that the public would soon see the full scope of what she had endured. The proof itself was not immediately made public, which only added to the intrigue. According to those close to the situation, the evidence included a combination of communications, insider testimony, and a timeline of events that linked certain damaging media stories to individuals allegedly connected to Baldoni. The nature of the proof suggested a level of planning and intent that went far beyond ordinary Hollywood gossip. News outlets were quick to pick up the story. Headlines framed it as a potential bombshell, while social media exploded with theories about what exactly Lively had uncovered. Supporters of the actress praised her for taking a stand, arguing that if her claims were true, she had every right to defend her name. Critics questioned why she would reveal the existence of proof without immediately showing it, accusing her of using the announcement as a strategic move to sway public opinion. Regardless of opinion, the strategy worked. The conversation shifted almost overnight. Instead of focusing on the negative press that had dogged her for months, much of the public discourse turned to curiosity about the alleged proof. What could it be? Who was involved? And how could this change the entire trajectory of the feud? For Baldoni, the development was a new challenge. His public image had remained relatively untouched up to this point, but now there was a narrative suggesting that he or people connected to him might be involved in a targeted campaign against a fellow celebrity. He continued to deny any wrongdoing through his representatives, but the presence of alleged evidence made the denials harder to keep in the spotlight. Entertainment lawyers and public relations experts began weighing in on the matter. In interviews, some argued that if Lively's proof was as strong as she claimed, it could have serious legal consequences. Others noted that in high-profile disputes, the court of public opinion often mattered just as much as a courtroom verdict. In either case, the situation was now larger than a simple celebrity disagreement. This was the moment when the feud transformed from a simmering controversy into a potential industry-shaking revelation. The alleged proof was no longer just about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It was about how power, influence, and media could be used in Hollywood to shape or destroy reputations. The question now was not just whether Lively had proof, but whether she would release it, and what the fallout might be if she did. With Blake Lively's claim of holding undeniable proof, the conversation surrounding her feud with Justin Baldoni entered a new phase. Legal experts began dissecting every word of her statement, offering predictions about how the situation might unfold in court and in the public sphere. In high-profile disputes like this, the law and public opinion often become deeply intertwined, each influencing the other in ways that can shape careers for years. The first point lawyers considered was the nature of the proof itself. If Lively truly possessed communications or documents that linked Baldoni or his associates to a targeted smear campaign, it could potentially support claims of defamation. In legal terms, defamation occurs when false statements are made that damage a person's reputation. If these statements are proven to be intentional and malicious, the legal consequences can be severe. This would be particularly true if the proof included written or recorded evidence showing intent to harm her career. Another factor was the issue of damages. In celebrity cases, damages are not just about lost income, but also about the long-term harm to reputation. A negative story about a public figure can affect future roles, brand deals, and media opportunities. Lawyers noted that if Lively could demonstrate a measurable financial impact from the alleged smear campaign, her case could be significantly strengthened. The higher the potential damages, the more serious the legal stakes become. Some legal analysts, however, pointed out that proving a smear campaign in court is not simple. The defense could argue that the negative stories were based on opinion or were reported from credible sources in good faith. Freedom of speech protections, particularly in matters involving public figures, are strong in the United States. This means Lively's legal team would need to meet a high standard of proof, showing that the false statements were made knowingly and with actual malice. The possibility of settlement was also raised by experts in many celebrity disputes. The goal is not always to win a lengthy court battle, but to reach an agreement that avoids further public spectacle. A settlement could involve financial compensation, retractions of damaging statements, or agreements to avoid further public conflict. While such an outcome might end the legal battle, it would not necessarily erase the public narrative that has already taken shape. For Baldoni, the legal landscape was equally complicated. If he believed Lively's claims were false, he could potentially counter with his own legal action for defamation of character. However, doing so would require him to prove that her statements about having proof were damaging to his reputation and made without basis. This kind of legal